Hello, kids. It's Jack Trash,
And Chris McLernon.
and we are here for another episode of Plus One, a rock and roll podcast.
Rock and roll. Yeah.
Exactly. This week, our guest is someone that we've been efforting for a while.
Wow.
Making up words as I go.
I'm with you.
Yeah, we've been trying to get this guy for about a month. He wants to do it. It's just a matter of fact that he's just had some scheduling conflicts, and then we had a scheduling conflict and whatever. We got him, and very happy that we did. And his name is Mickey Finn, the lead singer from Jetboy.
That's right. Yeah. Fellow MCA bandmate or label mate for me. Yeah.
Nice. And when I was just a big fan of the band, and so I just reached out, just kind of cold called him to do this. I didn't even realize that the band had a new record out.
That's right. Yeah. All covers record. Fantastic too.
And it really is. I took a deep dive into it and went, oh my God, this is really good. It's got a great title, which is called Crate Diggin.
Yeah, Crate Diggin. Yeah,
which is awesome. And the one thing that stuck out is the song Thunder Island.
I love that one because how often do you hear Jay Ferguson's name mentioned?
Right, exactly.
The whole record is unbelievably cool choices.
Yeah,
like because you would expect, okay, Jetboy, they're gonna do Social D and the Ramones, then maybe GBH and all these other like Killing Joke and stuff from the 70s, 80s punk scene.
No, they really expanded and did a fantastic job with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yep, love it.
All right, so let's.
He was a breeze, man. He was totally worth the wait.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we go. Here's our conversation with Mickey Finn of Jetboy. That's Chris, all in the Thunder Island.
Totally, dude. For the last half hour, it's in. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. And that one was like we didn't. A lot of the songs, there's different treatments, very similar, but that was one we're like, all right, well, how can we make this a little more exciting? So we just upped the tempo a little bit. I mean, obviously, all the tracks are heavied up with heavier guitars and vocals and stuff, but that one we also increased the tempo to make it a little bit more punky and energetic, and I think it kind of lifts the whole thing. And I'm happy with that one for sure.
It's so good. It's so good. I love the version of cover of the Rolling Stone. I mean, that's just straight out rockabilly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And we've always had a little flair for that with Jetboy. We've always loved, blues and country, and had some, even back in the day, there were some tracks that didn't make it to our albums. We had a song called Prairie Nights that was like a punkabilly kind of song. And then, of course, I had my band Cold Blue Rebels that I did for 6 or 7 years. That was a psychobilly band. So I'm into that style.
Yeah, and there's some other great choices here, like Bloody Well Right. I mean,
yeah, that wasn't one of mine. Look, Billy picked some tracks. Brian from Cleopatra picked some tracks, and I brought a few to the table. That was one. I was just, a lot of these songs I had no idea how I was going to sing it. We didn't have pre-production or rehearsals really of any kind. So we just kind of went in the studio and did it. But that one just came out so heavy to me.
Yeah.
Man, when I heard it back, when it was all said and done, I was just like, oh my God, I love this, and I was a big Supertramp fan because they came out when I was still living in New Jersey as a kid. They came out. I remember when that record came out, and they were just such a different band than what was going on at that time, so.
Yeah. We're in New Jersey.
I grew up in Island, New Jersey, which is Middlesex County, close to Edison, Woodbridge.
Gotcha. Because I grew up in Bergen County, and then later went to high school just outside of Princeton.
Right. Yep.
It's Mercer County.
Yep. Yeah, Island is right around the middle of the state, central Jersey.
Gotcha. So I was looking at the song choices on this, and the great thing about it is that they are really eclectic because, since you guys are known for a certain thing, I think most people would expect you, okay, here comes the Ramones song, and here comes the Dolls song, and here comes
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
That was my first thought. I was like, oh, cover record, great. My mind started reeling,
Yeah.
then it was like, no, he's got a different idea in mind. That was Brian who presented a different idea of.
Yeah.
And at first I was kind of like, what? Like, I don't know. But I kind of always, it didn't take long to get me on board because I love a challenge, you know what I mean? So,
and they're good songs. I mean, that's the bottom line. It has to be a good song.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like their songs, each one of those songs takes me back to a period in my life. And just like how a certain smell or a certain song can really bring you back to a memory or a time in your life, each one of these songs for me does. And a lot of them, like I can picture like riding with my mom or dad in the station wagon, and hearing like, these songs come on the radio. And then some of them are a little later in time, like the Hall and Oates, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
when that song came out, I was already like a punk rocker and a metalhead, and thought I was super cool. So at the time, I wasn't a Hall and Oates fan, right? It was like soft rock or whatever. But the videos were played on MTV and it was all over the radio. And so the song. And then at this point in life, as you mature and you become your musical tastes broaden, and you're kind of like not afraid to, you know what I mean? Like there's a life where you don't want to admit stuff that you actually like, but then eventually you go, I've been a musician, for 30 plus years, and I'm a music lover and I love all different styles. So it's like, hell yeah. Then you embrace the mastery of Hall and Oates and their songwriting and like that. So,
Jack and I were talking about that. We had Dave Ellison on, and we couldn't believe how much of a Kiss fan he was. He's like over the top. And it's like you said, he never would have admitted that at the time. Like, what's so far so good, so what? No way. No, it was Venom, and we were listening to Motorhead and Tank and all that stuff. We didn't listen to Kiss. It's like me growing up, my parents played nothing but Motown, Barry Manilow, the Carpenters. That's what I grew up on.
Yeah. Well, I remember one that shocked me too was when a lot of guitar players, I think one that comes to mind, I think it was gosh, I'm blanking out on his name right now. I think he was in Exodus and then wound up playing in Slayer.
Gary Holt.
Gary Holt. Yep. I think he posted that like his number one, who he thought was the best guitar player of all time, and I think he listed Prince, and I was like, and then I started to, I never realized it, but at a certain point, it started to be talked about how Prince was one of those, didn't get enough credit for what an amazing guitar player he was. And then I started seeing all kinds of different walks of rockers and metalheads and people going like, Prince, he's like up there with the top, 3 guitar players of all time or whatever, so it's kind of cool to me when that stuff happens. And I think it can only happen with age, right? You age and you just become a more serious musician, and then you're kind of not afraid to admit all the things that influenced you that got you to where you're at in your career,
you're a little more familiar with honesty, I think.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. You're not afraid anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't care. I've been for 30, and not that Jetboy is as big as Metallica or a lot of these bands, but I've seen a lot of these guys kind of change their tune and admit different styles of music that they're into. That I think only kind of comes with once you're a seasoned veteran musician. You can kind of say, screw you, I don't care what you think. I totally love Hall and Oates. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
Yeah. Go ahead, sorry, Jack.
That's okay. I was just gonna say that if you remember the We're Stars, the hearing aid thing,
right?
That all those great guitar players that were there, but the guy who played all the lead all the way through the end while everybody's singing We're Stars was Neil Schon.
Right.
Yeah. The king of hooks.
Right.
Yeah.
And the coolest solo, which I totally got by me at the one of the coolest got by me at the time, was Buck Dharma.
Yeah.
It's this weird kind of bebop-y, jazzy, like at the time, just like, that's not Yngwie, but then you listen now, like, God, that's really cool. Holy mackerel.
Yeah. It's good. So I want to go here because I've got two of you. So you two were playing in bands on the Sunset Strip while it was happening.
Yep.
So, and I was just going to watch the shows. or to host the shows, and
Right.
watching all the girls that I thought, oh, I like her, we'd go away with musicians.
Sure.
So
Girls you feed at the Red Onion. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So what was your time like as a working musician during that time? Because I mean, you're the epicenter of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously we started in San Francisco first. So we were a little bit later to the Sunset Strip, Hollywood scene, but we knew what was going on there. And it's amazing because remember at this point in time, like we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have the internet,
No.
but yet you knew what was going on with bands in Hollywood, and they kind of knew what was going on with us.
You had
When we
flyers.
Yeah, there you go. When we first started making the trip down to LA to play shows, we got together with those guys and we played with Guns N' Roses and Poison and bands that were happening at the time down there. And then in return, we had already conquered San Francisco and we're selling out clubs. So we were like, they wanted exposure up there. Everyone wanted to broaden their audience.
Yep.
So it was a real brotherly thing, it wasn't super competitive. The bands, those bands would come up to San Francisco and happily agree to support us. And we would go down to LA and happily support them. And it wasn't like a big competition thing. And then yeah, after a couple of years of that, once we started attracting label interest and had a proper manager and stuff like that, it was like, you guys got to move to LA because everything's there and all the record labels are there. It's easier to get guys from record labels to come see a show when they just can come out to a local club and they don't have to come up to San Francisco or whatever. So that was kind of the next big move for us, was to relocate to LA.
Yeah, so much of that era was word of mouth. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
And flyering, right? Man, I mean, when we had a show coming up in LA, we would take the trip down. We would have our stacks of flyers and wheat paste, and we would go and wheat paste all the poles and the freeways. We were a big guerrilla marketing band.
yeah,
I mean, we did stuff. We would take billboards and get up there at 2 a.m. and cover the whole billboard and stuff like that. You remember when Melrose and Haight Street, every pole was plastered so
Yeah.
thick with
Oh,
flyers, right? And we would just cover the whole thing, and we come back the next day and another band would cover us and we'd cover them again.
yeah.
It's like,
And somehow Poison got their flyers the highest on the pole somehow. I have no idea. It was always
ladders, man. We used to do that shit. You come out there with ladders and freaking buckets of wheat paste. It was all wheat paste. And remember that too, like there was no
I never brought a ladder. That's a good idea.
Yeah, there was no programs to like make stuff. So you're literally doing cut and paste,
Uh-huh.
glue sticks, and then down at Kinko's, printing out flyers and stuff like that. So
Yeah. But you were going to bring up a good point. It was competitive, but it was like not angry competitive. It was almost like, brotherly competition.
yeah, for sure.
Everyone was definitely helping everyone else. I remember being down at the Long Beach Arena flying, and everyone's, every poor car has got 13 flyers on it under each wiper.
Yeah.
But you run into everybody else, Warrant, Guns, Fast Pussycat, the guys in Jane's Addiction, whoever. They were all down there, all doing the same thing, and everyone was cool to each other. There's no bullshit between any bands ever.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's fun.
Yep. Yeah, and we all needed each other. We needed to have a scene. And if you want to be part of the scene and you want to gain more members to the scene, then you all got to work together. So.
Well, and the thing was, when you guys came down, I remember just visually you knocked everyone on their ass because everyone was kind of doing the same kind of, we're Aerosmith, but we're not Aerosmith, or Hanoi Rocks, but not Hanoi Rocks. And you guys came out as like, okay, right away without playing a note, you're like, okay, these guys aren't like us.
Yeah. Well, I remember like when we first really started visiting LA, maybe even before we started gigging in LA, the bands were still kind of like, the spandex pants and the Capizio dance shoes.
Yep.
Was a lot of that, like, off the tail end of like Van Halen style.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically like we, because we all were kind of hanging in the punk scene, and I came straight out of the punk scene. So, we made our own clothes. We were real influenced by New York Dolls and Hanoi Rocks. And I remember when we came down with the style, like wearing creepers, like no one was wearing creepers. And then it was like a year later, Poison, we're all wearing creepers, and like just the conchos, we would get the conchos and sew them down the side of our pants, or we would sew fringe, down the side of the pants. And this was also before there was like stretch jeans and skinny jeans. So we would buy pants and you had to, peg them tight and all that. Right? We would go to women's shoe stores to buy boots and shoes and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I'm not going to say that nobody was doing it, but in that kind of like rock scene that became the glam rock scene, I definitely had a different look than most of the other bands did.
Well, I was there and I could say that's absolutely true. I mean, maybe you can't say it, but I was like, no, you guys. And like, that's when like Axl was on the cover of Music Connection, and down the side of his pants said "Glam sucks."
Right.
Yeah. Written on in pants, but he still didn't have the conchos. He still didn't have like the stuff on the like the kind of boutique stirrupy kind of thing. No, you guys walked in. I mean, especially they got a big old Statue of Liberty Mohawk that'll get attention too.
Yeah, for sure.
Everyone was just like, "Whoa, what the hell?" But yeah, everybody was now scouring. All the stores are like, "Where can I get this shit?"
Like all these years later, the Mohawk still is like controversial. There was a post recently. I think it was because we're getting ready to go to Australia for the first time, and the promoters there, it's Glam Fest, posted an old picture of us, and they said, hey, Mickey Finn, was Mickey Finn one of the only people like rocking a Mohawk, back in the day, like in the Hollywood scene or Sunset Strip scene. And a bunch of people posted like, oh, there was this guy John Bouvon, there was King's X, and they put a couple of people, but there was also those other people going like, oh, this was horrible, and this is exactly why they never made it big, and it totally ruined their chances of ever being any. I was like, wow, still are like tripping on, but and there is some validity to it, because when our second video came out, Evil, I specifically remember the word from MTV was that the singer was too scary for daytime rotation. They only played us on Headbangers Ball, and they specifically said the singer is too scary or weird. I remember scary is the word they used for daytime rotation, because the record company was saying, come on, these guys are all over the place, or in all the magazines, you got to put them on daytime rotation, and they wouldn't do it. And it was like literally not even a year later or so, you had Marilyn Manson on there, like, but I was too scary. But it was, I had a Mohawk, and it's like, well, what is this? It's like, it sounds like a rock song, but then this guy's like weird looking or whatever. So, I mean,
which is part of the idea. We're in rock bands. We're supposed to be. Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah. You're going to be a cookie cutter mold, which there are tons of bands, where it's funny because I was watching the news today. I live in Vegas now, so I watch the news. I work from home, and it was, God, who was it? Steelheart, I think, is playing here. Yeah. And they showed a clip from one of their old videos, and they were like, oh, glam rock band, Steelheart. And I was just like, man, that is not glam rock.
No.
Like, glam rock is like, there was the Pretty Boys, right?
Yes.
That still looked like jocks with beautiful hair, and they were very pretty. But to me, that's not glam rock. Like I was there for the early days. Like I was on that transvestite New York Dolls like thing, right? I wasn't trying to look like a pretty girl. I was just trying to look like a freak, you know what I mean? So it's like,
I mean, you guys got your name from a Doll's tune, for God's sake.
Exactly right. And even if you look at, the kind of the history of glam rock, when you go back to T-Rex and Slade and these early bands,
Sweet.
I mean, Bowie and whatnot, right? That's really more what we were going for, as opposed to what now is known as hair metal. And we play these festivals all the time, and it's all these bands like Slaughter, and I mean, I'm not hating on any of those bands or whatever, but it wasn't what we were trying to do.
No, clearly wasn't.
At the time, it's like, you can understand the radio stations and MTV and stuff like that maybe just really didn't know where to put us, because we didn't fit that mold. Mm-hmm. And so it's like,
Doesn't help with marketing. He didn't have a label.
Exactly.
Meaning literally, not a record label, but a label on you.
Category. What crate do we put him in?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So this brings me. So you have taken me right to two places I want to go. One is there's a very, I think it's probably the most famous BAM magazine cover.
Yeah.
You and Bret Michaels.
Yeah.
So were you guys actually together for that photo shoot?
Yeah, we were standing back to back right there. The one thing that I'll comment on that I think that I've always kind of said, my story about that day is, I'm pretty sure it was like an early morning thing or whatever, but I just remember, I hopped in the car with my manager and I showed up, dressed, and I had my makeup case. And Bret showed up with like an entourage with like 3 makeup artists, and and I'm just like, fuck, this guy doesn't even know how to put his own makeup on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm there drawing my eyeliner on and like doing all my stuff, and I've got like a little thrift store beat up makeup case, you know what I mean? But yeah, we were, our bands were close, and we played a lot of fun shows together.
Yeah.
And
Here,
yeah, I totally want to reshoot that. Like we played with Bret. We played a festival in Michigan or Minnesota, sorry, at the end of last year. And I saw Bret. I hadn't seen Bret in years and years and years. And I just saw him for a couple of minutes and said, hey, or whatever. But the idea came up like, oh man, you guys should like take a picture, and then we could like, superimpose it or like reshoot the thing, like, then and today. So maybe that'll happen someday. I've been trying to like put the word out there to see if we could ever get together and do that. It would be super cool.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
What did you use for the Mohawk? Because in college, high school, we would use Knox blocks.
Yeah. So over the years, like through my punk rock years, yeah, we used everything from the unflavored Knox gelatin.
Yep, that was my favorite.
We used weird stuff like egg whites, like all kinds of soap. We would use like ivory soap and put it in there like wax. But for most of the Jetboy days, I was using Aquanet hairspray.
Yeah, the white can.
And our roadie Andy Moraga, who was with us for years and years, who was my friend from the punk rock scene, and he had dreads, and he would help when my hair was really big. He would help me do it because it was a process, right? I mean, it was back combing and rubbing it with a towel to kind of get it clumpy.
Yeah.
And then start at the roots, right? So he would spray the roots, and he had a hair dryer, and that thing would be cooking and smoking, and then he would work his way up so that it for the most part held up. It was pretty rock solid. And we used either the super hole, which was like the magenta colored can, or the white can, which was like the extra super hole. Super glue, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's someone who's been there. Use the towel. That's
how you get it kind of clumpy, and some back combing, and then the towel, and
Yeah, we had a front of house guy come in when we were all getting ready, and he goes, Jesus, it smells like my mom's getting ready to go out.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I regret. I at one point I used to wear like a bandana around my face because it would just be like noxious, you know what I mean? Between the hair dryer cooking it and then just spray and spray and spray,
Yep.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay, so you can finally settle this rumor that I don't know if it's true or not. Right. So we had a big KNAC show at in Costa Mesa at the Pacific Amphitheater.
Right.
This was on Chris's band was on the bill.
Yep.
And
what was your band, Chris?
At that point, it was Cold Sweat.
Okay.
And so
MCA, fellow MCA.
Yep.
Right. I remember.
Dio was headlining. And there was a couple other bands on that bill. You guys were supposed to be on that show, and the rumor has it that I can see by your face. You're not even you probably never even heard this. You guys were supposed to play, but Dio or Dio's management said, no, we're not having a guy with a mohawk play this show.
No, I don't recall anything about that, but I got to tell you, there's a lot of memories that you talk to Billy. If you get Billy Rowe on the show, he's the master like he remembers everything, every detail about everything of our career. I don't know how, but no, that one doesn't ring a bell.
Okay.
I probably would remember that if I had heard that, because I've always been a huge Dio fan.
Right.
In fact, I got knocked out at a Dio show while high on mushrooms, in the early days of Jetboy, because I was like all glam rocked out, and I went there with a few friends, and my one friend had a bag of mushrooms, and we were gonna like trip together, and I took my half and he took his half, and I just ate mine down, and chased it with some beer or whatever, and he like chewed his down, drank some beer, and immediately threw them all up. Just like, okay, I guess I'm tripping alone.
Hey, on your own, son.
Yeah, and then at some point in time, we were walking around. I think this was at the Cow Palace. It was I think it was Cow Palace. And we were like walking around, the outskirts in the building. And I just remember like walking by, and there was like this big group of like Mexican guys, like Vato looking guys.
Oh yeah.
And I just knew, like as soon as they took one look at me, you fucking started talking shit. And I just tried to keep walking by, and one of them just went bam and fucking knocked me out.
Wow.
And I was like that was, I mean, try to have a good trip and enjoy the show. But yeah, man, Dio has always been a big one for me. Hopefully that wasn't the case.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that, actually.
Well, and I've told Jack my side of it, which is having known Ronnie, because we shared the same management as Wendy. It was his wife. Yeah. So I got to know him really well, which is, as a kid, you're like thinking to yourself, okay, this is the guy who sang Heaven and Hell, and now we're having a beer together and playing cricket,
yeah, right.
and haven't done darts.
Yeah.
If Ronnie had done that, it would have been really surprising to me, because that was just not him. Now, if you were terrible, yeah, then you get some derision. Otherwise, he knew how hard it was to make it in the business, and whatever you did, you did. If you were good, that's all that mattered. It's all that mattered.
Sure.
And he's kind of a punk ass to begin. I mean, this is a guy who started, doo-wop groups in the 50s. He went against the grain for a long time.
Documentary recently. It was amazing. I didn't know all that about his past, and
oh yeah, he was president of his high school class. Scholarship to Juilliard. Yeah, he was out of control. Yeah. And just the crazy thing was, he could remember if he met you and then saw you again 8 years later, he'd have your name.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, I've always heard great things about him. I have friends that
total
friends that he was totally cool to them, and like signed autographs and gave them coin and stuff. I know a bunch of people that have great Dio stories. So
yeah, because I think when he was in Rainbow, it was a difficult time for him. And he was also, as he said, that taught me how to treat fans, because no matter what, he signed the last autograph, took the last picture, I answered the last question. When everyone was handled, then he'd go inside the bus or the venue. Otherwise, the customer was.
We always tried to be that way too, right? Like,
like,
out of all the bands that came out of LA, like, not to toot my own horn, which I don't know how you can toot your own horn by saying you were super humble, but I really feel like we were always super humble, nice guys, right? We weren't assholes, right? We didn't have that Guns N' Roses rebel fucking piss on the fucking desk of the A&R guy. Like we were just nice. We got along with everybody. We were polite. We followed the rules. We were really good guys. And with our fans, we always did the same thing. When we went on the road, it's like you just said, every fan that came up to the bus, we would go out and we would sign, and we would bring people on the bus, and we really wanted to let them know that we're one of you, just like you're one of us. And we always invite people back to the hotels, and we had great hotel parties, and so there was never like a rock star attitude from us.
No, and Ronnie at that point, even then, this is the early 90s. He's still royalty. I mean, he's vaunted status now, but then to hear him say, "Look, you don't know if someone came from 500 miles to see you. They're scared to death to meet you. Do not be rude to them." And our band was the same way. Just always friendly, always accommodating, because we remember being fans, and I think that's where it comes from. If you remember being the fan, you remember how the fan feels.
Yeah.
For sure. It's so it's the way it should be.
Yeah.
It's not always, but it's the way it should be. I don't know if you remember this because I've been trying to rack my brain. We did a KNAC. We did a record release party for Damnation.
Yeah.
I'm trying, and for the life of me, I cannot remember where it was.
It was at the Cat House.
Was it at the Cat House?
Yeah, it was at the Cat House. I remember because we gave away a Chevy, like a 57 Chevy.
Yeah.
We had Lemmy from Motorhead came up and played with us.
Sweet.
Which was really cool. And yeah, it was at the Cat House there on Santa Monica. Is that where it was, right?
Yes, it was on Santa Monica. Yes,
Yep.
like just I think of Santa Monica and Highland.
Yep.
Right around there. What so speak back to music for a second. What was a tune that made you like stop in your tracks and go, "What the hell is that?" and like change the course?
For what? For what era?
Just let's say early on, like you're like not, but it can be any. It could be 2 weeks ago. But what was one? Let's say early on. What was the one that made you just go, "What is that? I got to do that. I got to hear that. I got to find more about that."
Well, look, I mean, my progression kind of came from, I grew up in New Jersey. I was into, all the classic rock stuff, Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Kiss, and when I moved to California, I got exposed to more stuff like Sammy Hagar, Montrose, like a lot of stuff that was big on the West Coast.
Right.
And then, I didn't do good in school. I dropped out of high school for a year. I wound up going back to like an adult ed program, and I met this guy named John Norman who exposed me to the punk rock scene. And I feel like that was an eye-opening moment for me because I felt like when he brought me to my first punk rock show, which was at the Mabuhay Gardens, the Fab Mab on Broadway there, where we cut our teeth as well with Jetboy.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah.
First show there. It was just like, it just was an eye-opening, amazing experience. I just felt like, it was a scene where anything goes. I think he like kind of dressed me up in some, messed up my hair or whatever, so I'd fit in a little bit, but I felt at home. And I loved it immediately, and I just delved deeply into the punk rock scene. And I spent a couple of years just loving every minute of that. And I got into all the British stuff, Discharge and GBH and all those bands and that whole fashion, the studded jackets and spike hair and all that. And then that kind of segued me into the glam scene. And I had a short stint in a band that was like a Motley Crue era a band called Sweet Evil. So I think that, the punk into that early Motley Crue style. And then I met Billy and Fern, and they really exposed me to everything like New York Dolls and Hanoi Rocks and Japan and all this cool stuff.
Japan is what an overlooked band. Holy mackerel.
Man, oh yeah. David Sylvian. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're another one it's hard to like, where do they fit? Are they a little bit goth or a little bit dancey, but not a dance music band?
Almost like prototype Duran Duran. Like there's
exactly.
like these stuff going on, but there's big hooks and
pop Duran Duran, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I guess that was a long story to an answer, but I guess as it applies to Jetboy, it was really getting turned on to like New York Dolls and kind of seeing this. Well, they look like these freak chick transvestite dudes, but their music was very punk. Very rock and roll. David Johansen's voice he wasn't trying to sound girly, which is where every hair metal band singer is all singing high and kind of girly. He was like, like froggy, like manly voice, and then he's like dressed like a chick. So to me, I was just like, fuck yeah, this is so rad,
So it sounds like more like the scene influenced you musically than the other way around.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you're right about Johansson though. Just such a thick New York accent with the almost comical delivery. Yeah,
exactly.
Unlike anything.
Yeah. And I don't know, I guess because I grew up, I grew up a small kid. I grew up in the high school. The school system in New Jersey was really tough.
Yeah.
I was little. I was always like the second to smallest in my class. I got bullied. I got pushed around. I got shoved in lockers. I always wanted to hang with the tough guys, and I tried, but you know, I was really likable, so I had a lot of friends that would kind of bully me one minute, and then when people weren't looking, they would want to hang out with me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I guess I kind of grew up with a bit of a chip on my shoulder of like not fitting in. I wasn't smart, so I didn't get, you know, I didn't fit in with the smart kids. I didn't fit in with the nerdy kids, although most of my friends were the nerdy kids, but I never felt like one. I wanted to hang with the cool kids, but I didn't fit in there. I wasn't a jock, you know what I mean? So it's like I think you know, finding music that stimulated me and musical scenes that I felt like I could be anything I wanted to be was what kind of attracted to me. Because I've always loved metal. I've loved thrash. I've loved classic rock. You know what I mean? It's like and even that, like in the early days, there was definitely some distance between the Bay Area thrash scene with those bands like Metallica and Testament and those bands. I'm not going to say there was ever any serious altercations. In fact, you know, Fernie was friends with Kirk from Metallica and stuff like that. But I know there was definitely a lot of trash talking where those guys were like, yeah, fucking glam fags or whatever.
Oh, God, yes. Oh,
and then us going like, you know, well, whatever, dude. It's like you guys go play a show for fucking 500 dudes and we got fucking 30 fucking girls up front fucking wanting to grab our dicks, you know what I mean? So the joke's on you, bro.
That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We have just a couple of minutes left. One of the things that that we like to do is you get to pick one record. Doesn't matter what record it could be your own, could be what one you grew up on, what one record for us and for everybody else to just, it's the kind of everybody else's homework. You got to listen to Mickey Finn's choice of one album. What would it be?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the first thing that comes to mind, because I hear a lot of people that have always said, if you ask them what kind of music they're into, a lot of people will say like, oh, I'm into everything. Really, I like all different kinds of music, except country.
Right.
A lot of people
except reggae.
A line for some reason. And I always say, look, if it wasn't for country and blues, we wouldn't have rock and roll. So you can't sign off the entire genre until you've really delved into it.
Yep.
And for me, something that I feel like even the most country hater out there could get into is Hank 3.
Okay.
Hank Williams III. And I've got, you know, I don't know, like 8 or he's got a lot of albums.
Yeah, he does.
But Downright and Rebel Proud is a good one. But really any of the Hank 3 records, if you go listen to it, he's a punk rocker and a metalhead at heart.
Yeah.
He's as real of a country rebel as you're going to get. And the music is amazing. It's very heavy. It's nasty lyrics. You know, he's always been banned and shunned by the country community. So I would say for anyone out there, give it a shot. Go listen to Hank 3 and tell me what you think.
All right. Awesome. That is
perfect.
So great. Thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it. And honestly, the the covers record is so good.
Yeah, go check it out. It's called Crate Diggin,
which I'm going to say right now is the best name for a covers record ever.
Yeah, that's another one too, right? You got to know if you didn't grow up going to record stores and digging through crates. Some people are like, "Well, what's crate digging?" You know, it's like it's record hunting. It's going to record shops and digging through crates of records to find a hidden gem.
Yep.
And you know, it's eclectic. It has something for everybody. You know, there's one new song on there by Louis Capaldi, which I love, but the rest of them are all old songs. So there might be a few you've never heard before, like Cover of Rolling Stone or Thunder Island, but most of them will resonate with you and take you on a trip back in time.
Exactly. And I was telling Chris, your vocal performance on Fire and Rain.
Yeah, thank you.
So good. It
Yeah,
is
that's
so
what we're
good.
considering. We're trying to figure out what songs to bring into the set for this year. Thunder Island is a choice for me because I feel like that would be a good like encore. And Fire and Rain would be good to mix in the middle of the set somewhere, kind of as a ballad kind of thing.
Yep.
So yeah, that one for me, just real powerful. Also, Can't You See is another one that
Yeah, that was a good choice too. Interesting, yeah.
And just fun for me to sing. I love that soulful, heavy style that I apply to both of those tracks, and it just feels really good to sing those.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much for doing this. You're invited back anytime.
Right on. Thank you guys.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a great 2024.
You too, man. Take care.
Bye.
And there's our conversation with Mickey Finn of Jetboy. Super cool dude.
Yes, and well happy to dispel Mohawk rumors.
Yes, absolutely. Mohawk rumors and Dio rumors, which was
Dio rumors, yes.
Which was very
because I played that show and I didn't know if Jetboy was even considered. But that was a fun show at the Costa Mesa Amphitheater, and it would have been more fun with Jetboy, frankly, for me.
Yeah.
Because what those guys brought down from San Francisco was a sense of fashion that LA didn't have yet.
Right.
Which was the conches on the sides of the jeans and the black jeans that were stretch jeans. And my favorite, creepers.
Yes.
I love creepers. And I brought creepers into Cold Sweat and they were like, what are you wearing? It's like, I saw these dudes at the whiskey. They're awesome. They're from San Francisco. Guy's got a big mohawk, like real, like Statue of Liberty shit. And they're just like, huh? Like, you'll catch on. Don't worry.
Right. Exactly. I'll just put these over here for about 6 months and then I'll bring them back out.
Yeah. Fashion timestamp, right?
Right. Absolutely. I love the fact that he was unapologetic about being in a glam band.
Mm-hmm. Like true glam. Like he made the distinction between like glam and then mid-'80s Hollywood glam. It's two different things. It's clearly two different things.
Yes, absolutely. And most of those guys kind of back away from that.
Yes, they do.
Poison and whatever, they totally backed away from being a glam band. And and they went for it and are still going for it, which is really cool.
Yeah, because like you said, it's closer to the real glam. Well, and as he pointed out, guys who sang like girls, whereas like David Johansen did not sing like a girl at all. It might have looked like kind of a weird bad choice in the wardrobe department girl, but he was still David Johansen with that low voice, almost like a character cartoony voice.
Right, and the same with Michael Monroe from Hannah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he didn't sound like a girl at all. I mean,
no. And I used to see Michael Monroe and one of the other guys, maybe it was Yaffa, like in the behind the Guitar Center. They just kind of wander around back there for whatever reason. Gee, I wonder. And but they were dressed like they were the guys in Hannah Rocks. That was an all-day thing for them. That's the way they were. There was no doubt about it. It's like, okay, you guys are living this.
Yes, absolutely, and not
you're not worried about getting a job,
right? And not to get off on a tangent or anything like that, but Michael Monroe has put out a string of really great solo records since Hanoi Rocks.
Yes, he has.
Really good. And I saw an interview with him, and the country of Finland pays for him to do albums.
Wow. So it's kind of like Canada. If you're an artist in Canada, you will be put on the radio, no doubt.
Right. And yeah, it's part of the art and cultural part of the country.
Yep.
And that's part of it, which is really cool.
Well, that's always been my biggest beef about rock and roll and American perception. Anyway, in the U.S., you are expected to grow out of it, whereas in Europe and the rest of the world, you're an artist and you create, and this is your craft. This is what you do, and so it's not unusual for someone to be a Thin Lizzy fan in their teens and in their 60s, whereas in the United States, it's okay to be a Cowboys fan in your teens and your 60s, but not a Thin Lizzy fan. You should have outgrown that about age 28. Put it down already. Grow up.
Exactly. I remember that as a kid, is going out and buying a bunch of Kiss records, and my friend's older sister saying, hey, back off. Don't buy all those records because in about 2 years, you're not going to like them anymore.
Right. Exactly. Says who?
No.
Right. By the way, back to Mickey and Glam. His description of making the Mohawk show ready
Yes.
was awesome. Just it was like I remember that smell of burning Aquanet
Yes.
so vividly.
Oh,
And he had to be lying on his side too, because there's no you can't do that like sitting straight up. You got to lie on your side and then get the spikes going this way and lie him down and then spray him out and get them.
right. And his was so big, there was no way you could reach, even with your one hand, you couldn't
It
reach
was
that high.
huge. Dude, I'm telling you, we walked into the whiskey and saw that. We're like, what the hell? Look at that.
Yeah.
That takes balls.
Yes.
And they did it. They were and I mean, it helps they were a good band too, but
Yeah.
still, wow. I remember auditioning. Well, I actually never got to an audition. I called them up, and they were going to call themselves the Hollywood Dolls. I'm like, gee, I wonder you guys got this idea.
Right.
And they're like, we're going to wear makeup, dude. Is that okay with you? And I'm just going, well, it's not 1974 anymore because you shouldn't put anything in dolls in your name, but you kids have a great time.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. I never even heard of them. So,
yeah, bingo.
Right. All right. So, Mickey, Finn, thank you again for joining us on the show. It was definitely, as you said, well worth the wait.
Yeah, and go check out the Hank 3 stuff. It's good. And that was the other thing he pointed out I thought was interesting when we asked him about what's the song that made you stop and listen.
Yeah.
He went more for the movement from punk, less about the songs.
Yeah.
So it makes that crystal clear moment for me that sometimes music is about the minds around it as opposed to just the songs themselves. Because if you don't have that, then you don't get the songs. And in punk, that's definitely a factor. There's a certain mindset and a kind of camaraderie that went with producing the music as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah. And also too, if it's that is what's going to be what stops you in your tracks, you're not going to hear it on the radio.
Right. Yeah.
Not back then. It's not like something that he could turn on in his car and go, oh, wow. Nope.
Right.
You would have to have the tape of it in order to do that back then.
Yeah, you would. Maybe 8-track, but probably I don't think MCA was doing 8-tracks at that point.
No, probably not. All right. Until next weekend, our guest is TBA.
It is. There's so many lined up, we can't choose who's next.
Right. Exactly.
The line we'll call is very long.
Right. Exactly. All right. Until then, I'm Jack Trash.
And I am Chris McLernon.
And live your life to 10 plus 1.
And we'll see it. We'll call.